We have a ban list to talk about for Master Duel, and it is quite the impactful one. Even though, as in typical Master Duel fashion, there's not as many changes on here because, of course, Master Duel gets monthly updates, so we're not expecting every single ban list to look as big as some of the TCG ban lists are. However, this one still is relatively interesting, I think, for a couple of reasons. So why don't we go over these changes one by one and I talk a little bit about it. And I want to start with my favorite change on this ban list, which I'm also praying that we're getting a TCG ban list with this change soon before we get Cool Tune, is the ban of Naturia Rosewhip. The ban of Naturia Rosewhip is phenomenal, and honestly, I'm not sure where you stand on this, but I personally wasn't sure if they were even gonna hit Cool Tune at all. But the Naturia Rosewhip ban is definitely targeted at Cool Tune, even though Cool Tune just came out and people were, you know, theorizing that they might not hit it so early. The ban of Naturia Rosewhip is massive for the health of the game right now because Cool Tune is very popular, and even though I personally wasn't playing the card, a lot of people that I was playing against were playing the card, and that is very, very big for many reasons. I mean, in your average game, whenever this card shows up, it's going to make for a very bad time, but more importantly, it opens up so much more counterplay to Cool Tune. Cool Tune is a strong deck, don't get me wrong, but Cool Tune does have weaknesses. The Cool Tune board, even though they will have perfect information on your hand and on your top deck and stuff like that, is not that oppressive, and it is breakable, especially with board breakers. This was one of the biggest problems, I would say, with Cool Tune in Master Duel, is that the deck is really efficient into hand traps. If you use a couple of your cards to try and stop them from playing, which is usually not going to work, and they know like the last remaining 3 cards in your hand, and then they also manipulate your top deck, so you're going to draw like another hand trap, you're not winning with 3 cards in hand because you essentially don't get a top deck against the deck, right? Like you're just... But if you have a bunch of board breakers in your hand, they can look at your hand, but they can't do shit about your Super Poly, your Talents, your Pot of Desires, your whatever. And also, board breakers are much better if they are on top of your deck. So if you're playing a board breaker deck, and this is something maybe it's not talked enough about with Cool Tune, one of the biggest advantages of Cool Tune against hand trap decks is that there's a lot of cards in your opponent's deck that you can just put to the top and leave it there, and it's basically a dead draw. All the bad hand traps, right? You draw them on your turn, draw an effect veiler, draw whatever, it doesn't matter. With board breakers, they can't do that. If you're playing a board breaker deck, most of the time, the Cool Tune player is going to look at the top 2 cards of your deck. They're going to see like an engine card and a board breaker, or 2 of each, whatever, like two board breakers or 2 engine cards, and they have to give you a good card, right? Unless you get really unlucky and they show like a random one of that you don't want to draw, then they can give you that. But in most cases, they're going to see 2 good cards on top of your deck, which is one of the main reasons why decks like Sky Striker are good against Cool Tune. And guess what? What's good against board breakers? What's good against power spells? Naturia Rosewhip. There's no better way to punish your opponent for having a bunch of powerful spells in their hand than to summon Rosewhip and say you can only activate one of them, right? And so this card being taken out of Cool Tune has so many implications for like how to beat this deck as well. Like if you want to, you can actually play a board breaker deck now and have a good time. Like this puts decks like Sky Striker back on the menu, but not just Sky Striker. Any deck can be played with like a bunch of power spells now and maybe beat Cool Tune going second as well. Like Draco Tail suffers against Rosewhip as well, because that's the thing, right? If you have, even if you have a powerful spell in your hand against Rosewhip and you can activate one of them, they have one negation in the form of RS or also Zaylin, depending on what kind of board they go for. So they will just negate your spell and then you're cooked. I don't actually know how Zaylin interacts with Rosewhip, because Zaylin, I think, negates activation. Maybe you can activate another one, but RS definitely doesn't. So with RS, you could always basically make it, yeah. I mean, I'm talking about this more so in the impact of why this is a good change, but I mean, fundamentally, this card is a floodgate, so it's good that it's gone. And the same applies for Performaball 5 Rainbow Magician. There's a huge difference between how they handled Rainbow Magician and Rosewhip, though, because you gotta give it to them. The Rosewhip ban is very fast. The Rosewhip ban is very fast, and on time, basically. Pretty much exactly the same time as Cool Tune comes out, they get rid of Rose Whip, which is good. The Rainbow Magician is a good ban, but you gotta say this one's like months late. This one's like months too late. Like this is something that should have happened a long time ago, because that card was running rampant mainly during like when Draco Tail was playing the card, and at the moment Draco Tail is basically not really existent anymore. I don't know if I've played against like many, maybe one since the introduction of Cool Tune, but not many Draco Tails running around at the moment. So I mean, I'm still happy about it, I'm not complaining, but I wish they would have done it like they did with Rose Whip. They should have done it a little bit sooner. So yeah, those are the two bans, and I'm quite happy with them, because I mean, honestly, the other meta decks in the format right now, besides Cool Tune, everything like Cool Tune is definitely the strongest deck in Master Duel right now. I think that's what's currently also being reflected by like the standings in the in rated duels and everything. So the fact that they're willing to hit the deck so early is good in my book, and especially the fact that they're getting rid of the floodgates right away. That's going to save me a lot of my mentality during the upcoming Duelist Cup that Naturia Rose Whip is banned. I already know that. I would have crashed out at that card multiple times over the span of that weekend, and so I'm happy it's gone. But that's not even all of the hits to Cool Tune that they've done. They are also willing to limit Synchro Overtake, which is essentially fusion deployment for synchros, which is really good in Cool Tune. They are limiting it to 1. And I think that's a reasonable change. You know me, I'm typically not a fan of consistency hits. I think this is like not really a consistency hit though, because the Cool Tune deck can replace this card. There's other cards that you can play instead of Synchro Overtake. You can play the Duelist Genesis, which is basically a searcher for Synchro Overtake, or Cool Tune Synchro. The only thing is you need a tuner on field or grave, so it doesn't work as a 1-card starter, but it does work as an extender the same way. It's going to be worse into Droll and Lockbird because you're performing a search before you actually get your card, which means Droll is going to be even better against Cool Tune, and already is a good card against Cool Tune, which, I mean, Droll and Lockbird is a whole topic in and of itself, and that card is not fun to play against, but that's not really the point here. The point is, like, Synchro Overtake is one of the most powerful cards in Cool Tune, but there are replacements for it, which means that the deck is not really going to lose consistency on paper. It's just going to have to play slightly suboptimal cards. Like, you can go with the Duelist Genesis, you can play with Overtuning, you can play with Pot of Desires. There's plenty of ways. You can even play cards like Reinforcement of the Army, because that searches Cool Tune Mix, I believe, is the Warrior. But a lot of ways to replace this card means the deck is still going to stay consistent, but you're just not going to have this crazy 1-card starter that's also a great extender all the time, which is going to make the deck mostly weaker into, I think, Droll and Lockbird, because all the replacements play into Droll, and also it's going to make the deck a little bit weaker going second. However, I think going second is where this matters the least, because going second, because Cool Tune is a hand trap deck, I've found that the Duelist Genesis is basically a better version of this card anyways, unless you get Drolled. Because going second, you're going to use a hand trap, you're going to have a tuner in the graveyard, so the Duelist Genesis you can immediately activate, and then you can have the choice even between adding Overtake or Cool Tune Synchro. So in some ways, Duelist Genesis is basically when your opponent doesn't have Droll, I think Duelist Genesis is a better card going second than Overtake. So that's something to be considered. But yeah, I think in general, I am positively surprised by the fact that they were willing to hit Cool Tune so early, and especially that they banned Rose Whip. That's awesome. I wasn't expecting it. Of Master Duel of all games, if Master Duel, once again, I've been saying this a couple of times, but if Master Duel is the first game to ban a card, you know something's wrong. You know someone is behind on it. If Naturia Rose Whip gets banned in Master Duel before the OCG and before the TCG, you know those departments are lagging behind right now. That's crazy. But yeah. Another limit that I'm so happy about is Herald of the Orange Light. I was already asking for this one on the previous ban list. Like, I was hoping it was there and it wasn't there. Herald of the Orange Light being limited is phenomenal. I'm not even sure if the limit is going to really affect some. I mean, it affects the decks for sure, because you're not going to open the card as often, and that's one of the most frustrating uses of the card, is when they use it to negate hand traps. If like if they search their Herald at the end of their combo with Eva, it's like, okay, I guess, you know, you've resolved your full combo, you're now getting a monster negate, sure. But when you try to like hand trap the, what was it? It was mainly Sulfa Cord Yummy, and it was also Gem Knight, Fiendsmith, whatever. If you try to use a Mole Charmy or an Ash or whatever against them, and they just use Herald of the Orange Light to just play their combo uninterrupted, it was so toxic. So I'm very happy that this card is being hit. Leaving it at 1, like I said, still leaves some opportunity for people to play it in those decks with Eva. You might still be able to search it at the end of your combo, but it's less often that you're going to be able to negate hand traps with it, because the chance now of drawing your one of Herald with a fairy is not that high. Oh yeah. And then we've got some unlimits that are actually interesting. You know, these are cards that might matter. Kaftira Fenrir to 3 is good. That's an interesting approach, and honestly, I'm a fan of it. This card has been at 3 in the TCG forever. It's never hit the ban list, and it's never been a problem, in my opinion. I think Fenrir is a phenomenal Yu-Gi-Oh card in a good way. Like, it's a really good Yu-Gi-Oh card, but in a really good, in a non-broken way. Like, it's powerful, obviously. It's a powerful Yu-Gi-Oh card, but I think Fenrir in itself is a very interactive card because it's removal based. The only problem that I have is that Master Duel has not banned Arise Heart. So in Master Duel, I'm not sure if I'm going to be happy if people start playing more Kashtira. And because but the thing is here, this is the thing that I have to say here, is the problem is not Fenrir. The problem was never Fenrir. The fact that Fenrir is even banned in the OCG, in my opinion, is outrageous. Like, Fenrir is just a good generic Yu-Gi-Oh card, okay? But Arise Heart is a problem. And so if this basically brings Kashtira back into the format and people start spamming Arise Heart again, then they gotta do something about Arise Heart. They gotta do the thing that makes sense, which is banning Arise Heart. Fenrir being able to search itself is weird? No! Fenrir being able to search itself is what makes it well designed, because you don't have to play Kashtira to play Fenrir. Fenrir is basically a non-engine card, but a cool one at that, because it's removal-based non-engine, which is what I'm asking for all the time. I love removal-based non-engine. If the non-engine in Yu-Gi-Oh would be more centered around interaction and removal, we'd be living in a good place. If people would be playing more cards like Fenrir and Fallen at the Virtuous and so on and so forth, we're good. That's good, because negation is what is it uninteractive. Removal is fun. So yeah, I'm all for Fenrir at 3. If this brings Kashtira back, then they have to ban Arise Heart, which is always the good thing. Okay, Metamorphosis to 3 is interesting. I don't know if there's gonna be use cases for this card. I'm not against it. I'm not against it because I think the card has some problematic uses, but since the card is basically unsearchable, I don't think people are going to build decks around this. They might just put it into a deck where it makes sense to summon something cool with it. And I say cool, and I mean cool. Like, there is cool ways to use this card, and it might honestly be a preparation for the Fairy Tail support. That's a good call, because in Fairy Tail, I don't know exactly how it works, but I think in Fairy Tail it's a starter because they have a lot of level 4 spellcasters, and like one of their fusions is level 4. So you use it as like a starter slash extender by turning your spellcasters into that level 4 monster, I think is how it works, which is a completely fine use of the card, right? However, you do have to caveat this by saying if people now start playing 3 Metamorphosis in a bunch of decks where it just like brings out a crazy floodgate because you have the right levels for it, then I'm not going to be a fan of it, right? Like if people start now playing Kashtira with Metamorphosis because you can summon Last Warrior from another planet, I don't know if I'm going to like that, right? So it's a dangerous maneuver putting Metamorphosis to 3, but I'm not against it. I'm not against it. I think it's fine, hopefully. 1000% that's gonna happen. Here's the thing, I don't think that that is going to be the reason why Kashtira is hated. I mean, the thing, realistically, there's a billion other cards you can play instead in a Kashtira deck that are problematic, even if you don't draw them in like 2-card combos, right? Like, because there's a ton of cards like Macro Cosmos or whatever that you can just have and you don't need to draw anything else next to it. So Metamorphosis being a 2-card combo to Floodgate at minimum, I think in the modern context of Floodgates just isn't really right. If you can't search the card and your only purpose is to Floodgate with the card, then why not just play a Floodgate that doesn't require you to draw combos? Like stun duelists, they're not trying to draw combos. You can just summon a barrier statue, or you can just summon whatever. Like, why would you try to draw Metamorphosis plus a Kashtira? I don't know. I don't know if that's really the thing, right? With this card. So yeah. All things considered, this ban list is better than I expected for Master Duel standards. I think I wasn't expecting them to hit Cool Tune so early. I've already given up on the Herald of the Orange Light hit because it didn't happen previously, so I thought it wasn't going to happen, but I'm happy that it did. And the bans are great too. I mean, the 5 Rainbow Magician is a little bit late to the party, but I'm not complaining about that. Of course, it's not the perfect ban list because there's a lot of things in Master Duel that are still going wrong. We still have a lot of shit legal that shouldn't be legal. You know, Max Siege, Roland Lockbird, Ash Blossom, Called by the Grave, Baron the Fleur, what you name it. They didn't hit Magnet Warrior at all. I was kind of hoping for Block Dragon to go. Or at least Baron, but Herald of the Arclight is also still running rampant. So there's still a lot of stuff in Master Duel that that needs to go. But in terms of what we did get, I think it's pretty solid. I think it is pretty solid.